All right, everybody, welcome back to Crossfire with SB and Gabi. How you doing today, Chris?
I'm great, man.
What a difference a couple of days make. So, first of all, you guys are going to be seeing this video for sure on December the 2nd on YouTube exclusively because it is being recorded today. And we have a special video coming up where we are teaming up with Arm Talk and Uncle John's Arm Wrestling Show. So, it's going to be an interesting one. But right off the bat, let's thank our sponsors. Sponsor number one, Smirnoff Ice. They've been with us for a long time. They've shown us a lot of support over the past few months, and we're happy to have them. And announcing our newest sponsor, Lucas Raymond and Arm Assassin Strength Shop has come on board. And man, I hope that vacuum isn't too loud in the background.
No.
Housekeeping day. Anyway, Lucas Raymond, Arm Assassin Strength Shop, armassassin.com, has come on board. And you're going to see in the comment section of this video, or in the description of this video, rather, there's actually a promo code for that website. So Arm Assassin is committed to sponsoring the show, and they've also committed to offering up a $50 per month contest gift card, whether that's in the form of a promo code or an actual gift card. But you'll get $50 worth of stuff from Arm Assassin Strength Shop, and they offer a wide array of training equipment and even arm wrestling tables. So it's going to be a pretty good promo code to have. And they actually offer packages of equipment for different levels of arm wrestler. Have you checked out any of their stuff yet, Chris?
Actually, in 2015 or 16, I was in Rhode Island for a super match, and I met Lucas for the first time, and he was selling some stuff, and I actually bought a handle with 4 adapters, and it's one of the things I use the most. One of the adapters is a flat finger thing, which I always said I'd made a video. I haven't, but that's one of the most useful things I use. And then he sent me, a year ago, he sent me a thing to do table curls. It's angled, so it more or less simulates a preacher curl on your table. Again, brilliant device. He's great, man. Everything he does, I have a great reputation. I have a great relationship with him. Everything seems credible with him, and I'm glad he's aboard.
Yeah, and he was very quick to jump in there when we had an opening up for a sponsor. I would say within moments, if without exaggeration.
Yeah.
So let's talk Patreon for a sec. So because Lucas is now an official sponsor of the show, he's not doing it through the Patreon site. He's doing it directly to us, which is awesome. But we have 2 tier 1. We got Brandon Irwin and we got Jorn Harold Hebu. And we still, at tier 2, Bernie Marcocia, Zane William Nisley, Jordan Yoakum, and Sean Russell is still in there for a Patreon membership. So as that evolves, we'll keep reading out those Patreon members as we go forward. And the other thing we should probably look at doing is, for people to watch for in the near future, is probably a cafe press style of website for Arm Crossfire merchandise coming up.
Awesome.
What else you got in the you want to say in the intro?
Yeah, I was jacked the other day when I saw you posting that you're gonna release the Travis Bagent gem of an episode, in my opinion. Once we hit 1,000, I'm like, awesome. And then I sat on it for a couple hours, and I'm like, but that also means we might never see it. And I'm like, well, how can I convince my co-host Ryan Espy to expedite that process so more people can see it before 2000?
Well, I will tell you, one of the benefits of Patreon is that you have access to that video. That video is on YouTube, and Patreon members can see that. So even the $2 tier can get in there and check out that video, as well as other bonus videos that, and of course, early releases of all of our videos. So sometimes they're a week in advance. This one will be for sure. I know that that's a very capitalist approach of making people go to Patreon, but it's I don't think it's going to be that long, man. What are we doing this? A few months, and well, maybe this 21 weeks. So we're well on our way. We're sitting around that 733 mark, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. We'll get there. 1,000 members or 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. It won't take that long.
We can sit at 7:30 for the next decade, and I'm fine with it. I like passing up topics, and we might not have the biggest following, but I can tell you that with the thing that happened with our former sponsor, and every once in a while, we or I come on attack, and I'm telling you, the people that support us, we have some loyal supporters that are absolutely loyal to our cause. So just on that alone, quality over quantity, I'm fine with this. The subs, it'll get there, but I'm not overly concerned. It's not really a priority. I'm just happy that the people that do like us a lot.
Yeah, we got the best fans out there, and lots of people jumping to our support when we, whether we need it or not, and we appreciate that very much. The other thing was, what the hell were we going to talk about? Oh yeah, on the last show we had Ryan Bowen on, and when I got off the air, I thought to myself, why didn't I mention BLM? And then we got called on it for not mentioning BLM. I couldn't believe it. So, and the justification for somebody calling us, I don't even want to mention his show, but the justification for somebody calling us out on not mentioning BLM is we're not supporting Canadian champions. But the guy that called us out seems to think that the border between Manitoba and Ontario is where Canada ends too. He's never even mentioned guys past that point.
When you shared that video with me, I was just surprised. I just thought the guy fell off the end of the earth. Like, I just didn't think he was still active. And I watched it, and he starts talking about how BLM is a Canadian champ and the #1 220 in Canada. And then towards the end of the video, he says he's arguably top 10. So it's obvious he's got a personal agenda. He loves Brendan. Brendan's awesome. But frankly, theoretically, he's not in the same weight class as Ryan. Ryan's a lot more proactive when it comes to international pulling. Brendan, the farthest he's ventured is New England. And I think Brendan's awesome. We've talked about it. I've voiced my opinion on Brendan. He could be the future. He's a spectacular puller. But his biggest win to date is Brendan El Celso, who's a strong tier 3. Brendan has yet to, for me, he has to prove himself. He had one match with Paul Lynn when he lost both. I think he's dead in the water against RBJ. Ryan could be a good match with Brendan. They're both very tactical and great arm wrestlers, but in terms of arm wrestle. But again, there's a weight disparity there. Brendan's a big kid. He's bigger than Ryan. He can beat Ryan and still, in my opinion, not be a top 220 guy.
Yeah, and the fact is, I mean, Brendan's awesome, but we're talking to Ryan in the context of pulling in the Zloty tour, and that's not something that BLM is involved with. And then we're talking about him pulling in the context of the World Arm Wrestling League, and BLM is involved, but I don't think he's jumping into the spotlight with a guy that has the following of Ryan Bowen or into a title situation at this point. He has a bright future, but I mean, to just throw a guy in the mix because he's Canadian is not necessarily a proper move either.
No, the majority of our followers, we have international. The majority are our Patreon members are American or international, and that's our major demographic. But we're Canadian, and we always discuss the Canadian flavor, especially with the women. But this guy was a little bit off-putting, and I mean, the guy criticizing us, I don't think he's ever heard of Zloty. He's probably never heard of any arm wrestler outside of the Ontario provincial boundary. He's limited in his arm wrestling. He's somewhat ignorant, and so I watched that with a little bit of laughter because it's so biased. But whatever, we're always open to criticism as long as it's credible, and that criticism wasn't very credible.
Yeah, he reminds me of I used to work at a youth correctional facility, and when the kids would find out I was an arm wrestler, they'd ask me if I could beat Arnold Schwarzenegger in an arm wrestling match. That reminds me of it's that kind of content that that's what it reminds me of. Yeah.
He means well, but he's limited in his knowledge and experience, and his critique expresses that.
And he's welcome for the content, and I'm sure we'll provide him a little bit more to talk about after he sees this episode.
Yes, sir.
All right, coming up, you guys, very special episode. Stay tuned for about 2 minutes, and we'll be a go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Arm Crossfire with Espy and Gabi. But today it is more like Arm Crossfire with Espy and Gabi and Arm Talk with Jody Williams and Uncle John's arm wrestling show with Uncle John himself. I feel like I'm in a comic book. It's a team-up edition, and we're all on the same one. How are you guys doing today?
Doing good. Great. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome.
Yeah, pleasure.
So let's try to we're going to be talking over each other a lot, I have a feeling, as the show goes on. But, hey, it's good that we can get together and we can all support each other and we can try to build this online arm wrestling community together. So I can't wait to actually get the marketing out. And once people see this, I think it's going to be great for all of us. So off the bat, what do you guys want to talk about? You guys want to talk about, first of all, your own shows and get a plug in there right off the top?
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah. I'll take it away, I guess. So Uncle John's Arm Wrestling Show on YouTube. It's about 4 months old now. It's going well. Seems like people are enjoying a lot of the stuff. And now I just got back actually from I took a 4-hour drive up to see Mark McPhail and I shot a bunch of stuff with him. And maybe we'll talk about him later because he is an absolute beast. But he was doing pull-ups. He has a gym that's the size of a Gold's Gym, basically. It's packed to the brim. And, so I've been super busy.
All right, man. Jody, what do you got going on?
Well, let's see here. My show started about 3 years ago. And basically, as it began, it was more like wrestling techniques and stuff I would do to train for it. And then after a while, it kind of morphed into I had special guests and I would talk about certain events. And next thing you know, it just kind of blew up. But I'm not on YouTube, so I kind of do it Facebook. It's kind of unique because I like to talk about things off the spur of the moment. I'm not interested in like doing things, as far as YouTube where some people get paid if they get a certain amount of views or whatnot. And for me, I just want to keep it just like arm wrestling talk. Anything good, bad, any kind of arm wrestling is always good arm wrestling to a certain extent, in my opinion. And I like to get people's opinions when I have guests on, like, what's their strategy as far as going to tournaments and training methods and, ins and outs, some of the good stuff.
That's great, man. Mr. Gabi, what do you got for us? Kick us off. Give us something to talk about.
Well, first of all, I love John's show. It lacks the degradation and negativity that I like, but it's like a G-rated, but it's wholesome. It's G-rated, and he's got an incredible personality for it. If I had kids, I'd push them towards his show. And I'm always a fan of intellectual banter and analysis. So super happy to have you on, John. Jody, you too. I've watched most of your shows when I'm free, when you do your live video. Big fan of you as well. I guess to start off, what I'd noticed over the last couple of days is the IFA posting of the video, and I'm like, what are they thinking? Like, not banning anyone, inviting everyone to compete. It's like, that's such an anomaly today. But I had to share that video, and if there is a future on a international plane, I really hope IFA is driving that bus. They seem to be genuine, and like I said, I've never been a fan of banning or limiting participation in our sport. It's not big enough to do shit like that. So I hope IFA just kills it.
I agree.
Right.
I don't know all of the backstory on the whole shenanigans that got us to where we are now. But as soon as, like 6 months ago, I think it was Ryan Bowen did a video with Mercia. And Ryan asked him, well, are you banning people? Oh, no, we're not banning people. We're just, they're just not in good standing. Right?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
And so at that point, I was like, well, this will be interesting. And then now that they're apparently very happy to let us all know that they're banning people, I've pretty much 100% gone the way of IFA now.
Yeah.
It's sad it came down to that because I talk to Denise Wiles on a regular basis. And first thing we need to realize is that they're not going to have another national here in the States. We've gone through that, ringer time and time again, where at one point we had 3 nationals, which is pretty unheard of. Now, from what I was told, that Simon Barrachoa is the team captain. He represents the USAF, which qualifies you to go to Worlds. Now, under that banner, that's one thing. However, with the IFA, they don't plan on having another national. They just plan on having a different type of world championship. So you look at it this way. This past Worlds in Romania, awesome event. My buddy Cody Merritt did well. But if you look at the thing as a whole, there was no one from the country of Poland. There was nobody from the country of Sweden. So, and other countries too. So you kind of got to go, okay, with the IFA, those countries will be involved. And there'll be an announcement made sometime in January as far as for the USA about when the qualifiers are and when the World's date will be.
One of the very interesting things about the IFA is that your country does not have to be a member of the IFA for you to go to the IFA. So you can essentially just the qualifying process, I'm not sure if there even is one, but you can go and compete as an arm wrestler in that world championship, which if that tournament blows up, it could be absolutely massive. There used to be the argument that without a qualifying process, it hurts arm wrestling in the individual countries, but I'm not sure I agree with that.
Yeah, I think the big question is, so for this year for IFA, no qualifier necessary, just come as you are. But the question will be, what do they implement something? What does that look like? How does it work? Because if the IFA championships are indeed in Orlando next year, I mean, potentially could be the biggest tournament that has ever been if there's no qualifier.
Could you imagine? Want to go to Worlds? Sure, let's go to Worlds.
Yeah, let's go to Worlds and let's go to Disney World while we're at it.
Right.
Well, it's all good news. I mean, there was some rumblings of it's interesting because all the things that there was a lot of information that came out about what WAF is doing wrong, and then somebody came back from WAF and said, well, they didn't do all these things. Well, because now we're watching. So it's very easy to discredit somebody on them changing their mind and just taking another path and saying, you see, they said this and it didn't happen. But it is slowly happening. And the second that bans were announced, I think they kind of sealed their fate a little bit because a lot of people were leaning back the other way.
Yeah.
Well, you hope with Sam being in charge of the WAF, who's now become some kind of a dictator at some point. It's really rubbing people the wrong way, especially when you're threatening referees. We're talking about world-class referees, that, hey, if you referee this event, that it's not part of us, then you're banned. And even some of the pullers to the extent, the athletes, if you go to this tournament and it's not a part of what we do, then you're banned. And I don't think that's the right way to signal that for athletes because, who are you to sit there and tell athletes where they can and cannot participate for events? I thought that was wrong all the way around.
Well, and like Rick said in one of our episodes, Rick Pickney, you're banning people who are offering up their own money to go participate and support your event. Like, it's not like this is Major League Baseball. We're not pulling tons of revenue out of this. This is so if someone wants to offer up their hard-earned money and come participate and support, you're banning them because they don't believe in they don't have your agenda or your philosophies. Ridiculous. Not in this sport.
Yep.
Well, the good thing about the IFA is that, and let's be honest, the last time the Worlds came to North America was 2010, and that took place in Mesquite, Nevada. So, like you guys said, if it comes to Orlando, Florida, I mean, can you imagine? I mean, North America is just going to be off the hook as far as going down there. It's easier and probably a lot more fun than going to the Republic of Georgia for WASP Worlds next year.
And Jody, if there's no qualification, could you imagine? Because qualification for everyone, unless it's in your state, is it costs anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000, depending on how long you have to stay and time off work and travel. Could you imagine if you can just hop on, get in your car if you're in driving distance, or just get on a short flight and go compete at the Worlds? You're talking about records being shattered in terms of parts. Has to be crazy. Just in North America alone. Even if other countries, I mean, it'd be crazy. Just insane. You're talking classes with 45, 50 people. It would be awesome and insane.
Now, I've never been to Worlds before, but if we're, expecting about, 40, 45 pullers per class, that right there, that's a real world. And if anybody can walk out and win, take first place, they damn well deserved it.
Yeah, you're not looking out of that class, that's for sure.
Right.
No way. Good times. Yeah. talking about Mark McPhail in 2006, I was at Worlds in England, and the night after the last night we competed, the last day we competed, we went to a local bar. It was me, Mark, and Charlie McGeegan. You must know Charlie.
Oh yeah.
And we drank and we pulled, and of course we pulled earlier that day. It's the most pain I've ever had in my arms. It was brutal. Pulled right through the night. Couldn't do anything for days. So yeah, good old Canadian boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark is particularly strong right now. I've been training really hard, so I was really looking forward to gripping up and being like, all right, I'm making progress. That did not happen for me. That dream did not come true last night. He was tough everywhere, every possible place. So I'm hoping that Mark has a breakout year this year. I know he's gunning for nationals for sure, and I'm sure if Worlds are in Orlando, he'll be there as well. But he's got to be close to WAL level. I mean, he does have wins in the past on Rob Vidgen Jr. in a WAL event. So, I mean, he's proven that before, but that was also several years ago now. So I'd like to see him get a crack in some way, shape, or form.
I was thinking about that the other day. What is Mark's weight currently? Because he pulled at about 200 pounds at the last Nationals, did he not?
Yep. He was 98 at the last Nationals. Right now, as of last night, he told me he was 215, but he's starting the slow cut down process now to get closer to walking around near 200.
Now, here's a question for you guys, if you're aware of it or not. But has Mark McPhail ever arm wrestled against BLM?
Not that I'm aware of.
I haven't heard of it.
So we got criticized recently on not bringing up BLM in the Ryan Bowen episode. It was on another podcast that some weirdo with a beaver hat on was talking about us not talking about Brendan in the context of Zloty Tour or Wall. But I was thinking to myself, when you mentioned McPhail the other day, how those two would go would match up with each other. And I'm hoping we get to see it at the National Championship in Winnipeg. That
would be awesome. I think it would be a great match. It's such contrasting styles of arm wrestling there. Mark is just so fast and powerful on the inside, but Brendan is like, every time I think he's hit his limit, he just does a little bit better. So
yeah,
book it.
It's interesting because Brendan is a textbook example of a puller that is great when he gets everything he wants, and because he's such a intelligent puller, he usually gets what he wants. Mark, on the other spectrum, is phenomenal when he doesn't get what he wants in terms of his hand and wrist. So no matter how that works, Brendan doesn't beat Mark easy. Mark's just a hard out for anyone. I remember at Michael Classic years ago, Mark giving John Brzezinski a match. Like, Mark's just a very, very stubborn puller, and I'd love to see that. And I imagine we'll see it in the near future.
Well, speaking of John Brzezinski, what do you guys think about him putting his name in the hat for the Zloty Top 8 next year?
I think it's awesome. I think it's I've been waiting for John. I knew he wasn't finished. I was waiting for him to announce that he was making that comeback. So we saw him in Moldova. I got to hang around with him there, and he's talking about how he's sore and all this stuff, but he's still dipping his toe in the water once in a while, and he's arm wrestling here and there. I think when John comes back to that tournament as a champion, I mean, he would have to be close to considered a favorite. If you know the man at all and what he will do to prepare for that event, at that weight, he's going to be a very, very tough guy to beat, even with guys like Angrabayev in there.
I think giving John the proper rest he needs, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, John's not old, but to the point he's been pulling since he was, 13? So he has a lot of tread on those tires. And for someone of John's stature, if you give him the proper amount time to prepare and rest for an event like, the Top 8, by all means. I mean, I'd say he'd be the favorite.
They say in boxing that the last thing to go on a boxer is his power. And in arm wrestling, the same goes true with hand control. And whether you're 30 or 45 or 50, John has a dominant hand. John will always have a dominant hand. Todd Hutchins once said, if you're ever going to think of getting out of arm wrestling, you have to make a full committed effort to do it. You have to get off social media. You almost have to start eliminating your arm wrestling friends, because it'll eventually pull you back in, and that's what we're seeing with John. He's pulling him back in, and of course the whole sport profits when John's arm wrestling, especially at that level. And I don't know if he's the favorite, but he'll mix it up. And it's a 95 kilo, so he doesn't have to worry about beasts, right? He doesn't have to worry about 240-pound guys. So yeah, I'm jacked. Great news.
Well, not only that, and then I think Ryan Bowen also explained he had a conversation with John, and he kind of explained or told Ryan, hey, I think you should pull is there an 85 or 86 class for him to participate in?
Well, there was an 85 kilo that Ryan was going to arm wrestle in, and John said you should pull the 95 kilo because the top 5 guys end up in the mix in that top 8 tournament. And the way it would work is there's 3 champions, which I think are John, Angrabayev, and Babayev. And then the winner of the Zloty at 95 kilo gets the other champion slot, and then the 4 guys below that would get that contender slot. And that's how they would do the matchups.
Well, speaking of Ryan Bowen, how do you 3 think he'll fare?
I think he's got a real shot at the top 5. I mean, I think he can qualify for that event. And I think it'd be pretty awesome if he did. But it's an interesting experiment based on what we've seen from his training. But go ahead, John.
For me, I guess I don't know, but I know that if he does well, I think it will be what's best for business. I think it will be good for arm wrestling. Whether you're a person who likes Ryan or not, he's put out just a whack load of content. You can't say he hasn't been a significant influencer in the rise of popularity of arm wrestling, at least on YouTube. So I hope he does great.
Completely agree with you, John. Whenever he's in the mix or whenever he does well or even participating, the sport profits. He comes from, in terms of arm wrestling style, he comes from the school of Devin Larratt, where it's more geared towards super match, tailoring your style to one guy, methodically beating down one man. He's not an explosive hitter, and he's going into a class where everyone in that class has as much, if not more, horsepower, and they're notoriously hard to get out of a hook. If in fact his side pressure is that much more, has that improved that much? Potentially he could match some of them. He'll do okay, but if he finishes top 3 or even top 5, kudos to the upgrades in his side pressure, because that's what those guys bring to the table: fast, explosive, hard shots to the side. And if you're looking to gradually build up hand pressure or grind them out, it's not going to happen. And there could be 15 in the class tailored that way. That's why I've always said Zloty or WAF Worlds in Europe are the 2 hardest tests in our sport.
I agree. And it's going to be interesting, Guy, because like you just said, 2 things I'm looking at. Number one, yes, like what you said before, that sometimes Ryan Bowens, he gears himself like Devin, like, super match format. Now, we all know in the sport of arm wrestling, when you enter a tournament that's a 15-man tournament, or you enter an event that you have a super match, it's real easy to focus on one person, because then you have an option B and option C. Whereas as a tournament, anybody can throw anything at you, and you almost have to learn off the cuff. So my thing with all that side pressure he's been training for, a la Toddzilla, which is good, and I hope it works for him, but you don't want to start getting in grinders your first 2 matches in the tournament, depending on how many guys show up.
Yeah. I mean, Herman did very well a couple of years ago, or even last year he took 3rd, but Herman has that European style. He's explosive, good side pressure, and a good hook. So he's kind of tailor-made to do well. Ryan remains to be seen, but anytime a guy decides to throw his hat into the ring, it's Zloty. Win or lose, man, there's respect to that, because that is a harsh environment.
Yeah.
So kudos for him to even to fully commit to it.
The man takes a lot of shit for what he does, but he does. He's got guts.
He's fearless.
He's putting it all out there.
For sure.
He's fearless. He's fearless in the internet game, and he's fearless in his pursuit of arm wrestling excellence. So, best of luck.
Is Herman going to Zloty this year?
He's gone for the last 2 years, and whenever I talk to him, he's always planning on it. He doesn't make he doesn't post about it on Facebook. He doesn't make a big show about it. But last time I talked to him, he was definitely planning on it.
Can he make 95 kilos?
He can. When we were talking about it, he was talking about making 95 kilos. He's been at 95 kilos before. And he was on I haven't talked to him in it's been maybe about 10, 11 days, but he was dieting. He was looking to get down there. So we'll see.
That is an interesting scenario that would present itself if Herman could get to 95 kilos and end up in the mix in that big event next year.
I mean, you saw him pull Paul, and he was giving up a little bit of weight. He doesn't have a 230-pound frame. He's maybe 5'10". So it's hard for him to pull big, strong, larger frame men. So I think if he can get down there, it's optimal, and he can do tons of damage.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Don't worry, boys. I can edit out the silent parts. We could.
I know there was someone wanted to talk about the breakdown in tiers or subdividing tiers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll kind of set up my question regarding that. So I really like the whatever you want, the Gabi system of ranking arm wrestlers, because I believe it's very, very important for you as an arm wrestler, for me as an arm wrestler, to understand where I really am, right? That is important data, so you're not fooling yourself. And one of the things, when I talk about it to people, it's hard for me to explain the distance between a 1 and a 2, and then a 2 and a 3, and a 3 and a 4, because I feel like the distance between those things grows exponentially. And I was just wondering, Chris, if you kind of see it that way, or if you thought about it in those terms before.
Yeah. It started off at a practice when I had a relatively new guy say to me that he's going to a pro tournament and he has his target is top 3, and I said, "You're not that guy. You're not there yet." And I said, "You're a lower level." He said, "What level? Am I a grassroots beginner?" I said, "Well, not exactly. He's maybe a year into the sport." And then I decided I'm going to break this down. Originally, I had 7 tiers, and then I'm like, I'm tired of catering, or I didn't really want to cater to complacency. So I broke it down to 5, and everyone fits in those 5. Now, of course, there are certain guys where you can say he's a 2, very close to a 3, or he's, obviously there's sliding scales. But one is just a flat out beginner who's still learning the intricacies and the basics of arm wrestling, and he can do well at a novice tournament, but he's not doing anything past that. The number 2 can maybe even take a win at one win or 2 at a pro event, depending on who's in the class. That's why the majority of the sport falls in the 2 and the 3s. The 4 and 5 are your elites. 1 is your beginner, and 2 or 3 are your low-level pro, high-level am. So I figure I like the 5 because it's simple. 7 was a little bit too convoluted, I thought, but it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. And people can conduct only do super matches. People can do certain things which makes it hard to rank or place them in that tier system, but at least it gives you a rough guideline, a framework to where people are. I mean, there's not one arm wrestler you can bring up that I can't roughly give you a tier. Now maybe he's between, or he's on his way to a certain tier, and because it's not really where you hypothetically where you see a guy is what he's proven. So you can say he's a proven 3, but I can absolutely, like Brendan. Brendan's a proven 3. Everyone will say he's a 4, but he's a proven 3 to yet beat a 4. Once he beats a 4, or he does a damage that a 4 would do, he's a 4. But right now he's a 3, highly trending to being a 4 because his ceiling is so damn high. So that's it's not perfect, but it's something to talk about, right? It's better than nothing, I guess.
I like that. It kind of reminds me of a report card. If you're a 5, which is elite, that's an A. Next one down is a B, C, D, and F, and so on. And not to sit there and and poke fun at the beginners, because you got to start somewhere. Here's a question, and just for my personal aspect, I did a lot more pulling when I first got into the sport in 2011. But now, as I got older, my kids got older now, so now I'm more going to their sporting events now. So I only make it to maybe 2, sometimes 3 tournaments a year, but they're bigger ones. So, for example, I consider myself average, maybe a little bit above average. And I went to the Arnold earlier this year, and there were 27 guys in my class. There was the 199 and over, so I ended up taking 8th. So does that mean I'm average? I mean, just by your system, I'd be kind of curious to know.
The template I use is Arnold Classic type. It has to be a cash event, not a cash event giving $100, but it has to be a prestigious cash event that the elite pros gravitate to, much like the Arnold Classic. Finishing 8th in that class, I mean, I didn't see you're a 3. I mean, mixing it up in that class, if a 2 would not finish 8th. A 2, unless you got exceptionally lucky with a lot of draws, a 2 could not finish in the top half of the bracket at Arnold Classic. So someone could argue you're a 2, but I think just on sheer optics and result based, you're a 3. And if I'm in doubt, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt only because you've been in the sport so long and you have your own talk show. But I think you're a 3. But the fun thing about all these tiers is you can argue it, no matter who.
Yeah.
There are exceptions, of course, but I can say someone's a 3. I'm going to say, well, they're a 4, and we could have a good enlightened debate about it, and both agree that we both bring validity to our arguments. So it's basically, and the reason why I did it is because I think when I was holding practices and having a lot of new guys come in, I thought one of the biggest dangers in our sport for a new person, or even an amateur, is not knowing where they are. Because what happens in the sport is if you don't fully know or accept where you sit, and you go to an event and I'm like, well, I'm going to finish top 3 at this prestigious event, and you get sliced and diced, the danger of you quitting increases. So
very high.
So if the love or the essence of who you are in the sport is geared towards results and a misunderstanding of where you sit, there's a good chance you're going to get spit out by the sport. So I think as long as you realize who you are and where you want to go realistically, you can have an awesome existence in the sport, but it's essential that you know where you sit. So that was another reason. So I can tell someone, look, man, you're a 1. You think you're a 4, but you're a 2. You think you're a 3, but you're a 1. Like, it's important just to set someone up. And of course, obviously, it offers trolling opportunities, but really it's just a way to realistically express to someone quantifiably where I think they sit based on the results. It's not a judgment thing. It's based on results.
I'm glad you said that. I mean, that's probably one of the more truer things out there and I'm going to say this, and this is where God and I we're going to butt heads about this. Now, as far as, let's just say on a national level, on the open category, yeah, I'm probably a 2, probably a 3. But I figure, at the Masters level, I'm pretty up there, like a 3 or 4, give or take, and I've finished top 3 at the podium on a national scene at the Masters. So because I know where I'm at, and I'm okay with that. I don't train as much or as hard as the guys in my weight class in the open category. Now, granted, if there's an open tournament, yeah, I'm going to do it. But I'm more, fit for Masters now because I just don't have the time anymore, but I still want to, compete at a high level. So by you saying, as a 3, I have no arguments. I think, I'm more fit for a Masters, competitor, which, not everybody's, like that. But, from where I'm from in the States, Masters, we dominate when it comes to world competition. That's just the way we are, because all our open competition, guys like, Dave Chafee, Michael Ty, those guys been there and done that. So you probably won't see them at a WAF event anymore. That's just the way I see it, unless Michael Ty wants to do one more thing, because that's the one thing he doesn't have, aside from a Zloty championship, is a WAF title. He had every accolade known to mankind, every kind of organization. But other than that, just to get back what you're saying about levels, that's just the way I see things.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's geographical as well. Like in Zloty, in Europe, I'm a 1, but in my condo complex, I'm a 5.5, baby. So it depends where you're sitting. But yeah, it just presents arguments, and like rankings. Let's face it, it's just to stimulate conversation and have some fun, and no harm. Just an easier way to express judgment or express opinions on certain pullers. So it's all good. Some people take these things a little bit too serious, but just a framework of, I don't know, just conversation, I guess.
The longer I've been in this sport, the less the rankings have bothered me, because for a while there, it was like the most important thing in the world to me. And it seemed like those guys that were running the rankings, Gobby and Jeff Slater, every time I would get beat, or even if I would beat somebody that was above me, The only thing that would happen is if I was fifth and I beat the fourth place guy, the fourth place guy would go to sixth, and then all the next guys would fill those spots. I would never move up. So it was, it's largely opinion based, you know.
Basically, you're a victim of geography, because no matter who does the rankings, and I don't care who they are, there is a subconscious bias geographically to where you live, because where you live, you get more feedback, you get to see more things. So automatically, unless you're incredibly deductive and have an objective thinker, bias comes in. Eric was the opposite. Eric, because he was scared of looking biased, would be counter bias.
Well, I remember that. It caused a lot of
right. But that's why I was kind of good at the rankings, because I'm a sociopath and I don't care what people think, so I can be completely objective. But I did take a lot of heat. But it's rankings, man. It's a fucking one person's opinion at the end of the day. Like, come on.
You know how I know you're not a sociopath? A sociopath would never say, I'm a sociopath.
Maybe a psychopath. Maybe I got the terminology wrong. Maybe I'm a psychopath. I don't know.
Now, I know what the guys here in the States, I don't know how you three feel, but rankings is a good and a bad thing. There's pros and cons with it. The good thing is that if you see your name up there in the top 10, you kind of go, oh, okay. Let's just say, for example, you know, I'm in the 242 class and I'm 8th. I'm looking at the guys in front of me. I'm not so much worried about the guys behind me. And so now you want to sit there and go, okay, whatever tournament they do next, I'm going to go there. Hopefully, if not by super match, by a tournament, get the pinfall. Maybe that'll move me up. The downfall is that, let's just say you're the number 4 pooler and there's a big event, and then you got, you know, ranked number 1, 2, 7, and 8, and they all do good and you can't make it there. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I know I'm better than the guys behind me, but they won only because I wasn't there. Now that bumps me down. And it always seems like you're kind of, to keep your ranking where you're at, if not go up, you're kind of forced to go to these tournaments that they go to just to keep that ranking. And sometimes that's not always the case because due to unseen circumstances. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. It creates motivation for those lower, and it creates a target on the back of people that are higher. But that's a good thing, I think. Like, it's not good if you're being targeted and you lose position. But what did you lose? Did you lose money? I remember once Alan Ford, because I put him second in Canada, he claimed that he was losing thousands of dollars of sponsor money because they were sponsoring based on being number 1. And I said, there's no way they're feeding you money based on my opinion. And if so, where's my cut? So it's ridiculous when certain people take this to heart. But and frankly, I think it's good to have a target on your back. It keeps you hungry, and it's good to keep motivated and want to beat someone. I mean, when I got in the sport, I found out about the tournaments by flyers. There was no Facebook. There was no social media. I didn't know who was ranked. There was a top 5 ranking done by a Canadian guy of 3 weight classes. So basically 15 people. And of course, I'm in range of none of them. So you couldn't get a grasp on who you needed to beat or where the stepping stone was. Now, at least, we know what the stepping stone is in every province and every state. We see videos everywhere. People are targeted and people are motivated, and we see trash talk. And I think it's a great time on earth to be an arm wrestler. There's so many ways to be motivated and to keep your motivation and have incentives. So I don't really see a negative other than feelings can be hurt. But again,
yeah,
I don't live in that world.
It's fun and it's interesting, but you go back to these rankings that were done all over the United States and Canada, and these guys are never going to face each other, half the guys that are ranked. It reminds me of back in the old in the heyday of professional wrestling, when you'd pick up the Pro Wrestling Illustrated and you'd have the WWF ranking with Hulk Hogan as number 1, the NWA ranking as Ric Flair as number 1, and then the combined ranking, Ric Flair was always number 1 and Hulk Hogan was number 2, and it never changed. It pissed me off. As a child, it pissed me off so much that I would never see the resolution to that. It eventually did come, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say there quickly, arm wrestling is, especially now with the advent of social media, is moving forward so quickly. And it lends itself to this kind of thing of, yeah, you did great last weekend. What are you going to do next weekend? Right? You got to keep moving forward. You got to stay up. You can't just take 6 months off and expect nothing to happen, right? Everybody's moving forward. Everybody's hungry right now. We got huge things on the horizon. So if you're not training to win and you're not willing to get out and just bang and keep at the top, if that's where you are, it's just not going to work out for you, because that's where we are with arm wrestling, I think.
Yeah, and guys that market themselves well, like Ryan and BLM, and are on Facebook and aggressive and calling people out, it rubs some people the wrong way. But I mean, there's ways to increase your marketability that way, and it offers a different vein, a different environment for people like that. And I think it's all good. It's all good, unless you let it get to your head. Or some people, they create this false idea of themselves, and then they go to a tournament and get lit up. But I mean, that's your own monsters coming out. But I think it's great.
I'm not sure why so many people have this disdain for Bowen. I really, I mean, I support anybody who has a talk show like you guys and Ryan and myself, because I'm always going to, vote for them, because it's hard to sit there and like, okay, now I'm talk show host, but now I'm puller now, and it's hard to do stuff like that. And I'm pulling for. I don't know why. Maybe it's jealousy, because at first the pound for pound, it was him going over techniques, and then all of a sudden he had John Brzezinski on as regular guest, and then all of a sudden he had a series with Todd Hutchings in the training, and he went there, and then Todd came to his pad, and so maybe it's a lot of jealousy. I'm just guessing that why he gets so much hate. I don't understand that.
I can tell you why. Because he's arm wrestling is a business for him, and he's trying to create a complete revenue from it. You don't know what is pure and what is solicitation. He's a great speaker. He's a great politician. He's also a great guy. I've met him. He's a great guy, and I was harsh on him. But I'm harsh on anyone that tries to solicit. Going back to me and Ryan a decade ago, I'm just only because you don't know what's pure and what's not, what's genuine and what's not, because there's an agenda. So that's why I think guys like Joel Hudak, who's an absolute purist. Joel's a fucking, he should have been born in the 13th century as a gladiator. Like, he doesn't understand solicitation. He doesn't understand marketing. He's just a pure, fucking a man's man. So he's on the other spectrum. So that's why people like Joel are criticize Ryan, and I have in the past. But he's a good guy, and he's doing great things. Why it doesn't really bother me that much is because he's doing amazing things. He's building the sport. Even if he has an agenda, he's building the sport. Devin, building the sport. But if you want to know why some people have a problem, I believe it's because there's an element of solicitation there, so you don't know what you're getting. But it doesn't really matter to me, because he's building the sport. He's moving it in the right direction. So it's all good in my world. But to answer your question, I think that's why.
I have a slight addition to that answer, and my addition is that because he's so popular online and he's done things that draw attention to himself, his trajectory is affected a little bit differently, and he has maybe climbed that ladder artificially more than organically, and he's been put in positions. An extreme example of that would be Juji Mufu getting a match on a WAL card. He's not there because of his arm wrestling ability. He's there because of his status. So Ryan has a bit of both of that. So I think it's actually put him ahead of maybe people that think they deserve that spot.
At least Ryan's a puller. I mean, Juju, It's like, that guy, man, hell, somebody called me, I'd pull that guy in a second. But, at least Ryan's legit. I mean, he's got does he have like a Australian national title or whatever? So, I mean, he's legit. Juju's, because he's his YouTube is so, outrageous and stuff that, let's give him a shot. So, and I'll get into that later on when we talk about Wall. I'll get into that later. But yeah, Juju's it's social media driven now. The sport is.
Yeah. Ryan makes a great point, and I agree. But like you said, when Ryan came to the bottom 8 and diced up the competition in harsh environment, with jet lag and all that stuff, he's a proven puller, and he's here to stay. Juji Mufu was it's a different monster altogether. He had no business. But like Ryan said, that's a perfect example of why certain people might hate, quote unquote, or criticize. Thoughts, John?
Yeah, specifically on the Juji match. My question is there a place for that? And what might that place be? Because I know most people who watch arm wrestling or are arm wrestlers were like, well, this is obviously fake, right? Mike gave him a match, it is what it is. But is there a place for Juji somewhere at his current level? Is there room for that? Is it good?
Well, it's kind of like saying, is a hockey player worth $12 million a year? Well, if someone wants to see him, someone's willing to pay to watch him do his thing, and like as pullers, as purists, we thought that was obscene. But if the Wall is not trying that, we are not the demographic for Wall, and if we are, they're going to fail. So if the people on YouTube or their major non-arm wrestling demographic thinks it's awesome, then you got to do it. I mean, whatever's better for the growth of the sport. We don't like it. We're purists. We don't think he's earned it. I want to see a guy like Brendan El Celso, who's been grinding it up for a decade, going all over the Northeast, pulling, get a shot. Even winning Wall qualifiers and not getting a shot. But maybe that's not what the direction they're looking at, or maybe they don't think that's the best. I don't know, but I got to believe they know what they're doing in terms of marketing their brand.
Well, John, to answer your question, I think, how do you get somebody like Juju on the Wall scene, but in the finale of all places, but you don't get anybody like Paul Passmore, and Paul Passmore, and he's nursing his broken arm now, but all he had was a dark match. And what I mean by dark match, he had a match against Corey West that wasn't televised, but he did. I mean, he's kicking ass. He smacked Matt Mask, in the Mississippi State Championships, but yet, he was on his way to making the WLC, but then you get Juju who just skyrockets everybody. So I guess there is some kind of resentment too, and it all depends on how you want to market that. So yeah, back to what SB was saying, as far as, is that a good decision to have him on there? This is my opinion. Probably not. If he wants to be an arm wrestler and work at it and work your way up, fine. I have no problem with that. But the guy's really never pulled anybody, and then all of a sudden he winds up on the finale on TV. It's like, really? And it kind of, in a match where, Michael's going to destroy him, which he did, that did nothing for Mike, in my opinion, at all.
But that strap made all the difference.
What's that?
The strap made all the difference. And Juju was able to get him once.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know if that was legit or not, because, Mike Ellis is strong.
It was not.
Yeah, see? And that's the whole thing. It's like, okay, now if you want to be, WWE entertainment, fine. When Michael Tyler's throwing a fit, fuck it, I'm taking my belt and walk home kind of stuff, fine, whatever. But at the same time, at least, the matches are somewhat legit to where at least they're trying. It was like Juju had I don't know what kind of background he has as far as arm wrestling, except for I knew that his popularity at the Arnold this year, when I was there, I mean, he had his booth, had an arm wrestling table, and his line was wrapped around the corner because it was Juju. He was famous, and he went to arm wrestle. I don't know what kind of technique he used, but I sat there and watched a few matches. It was all just power-based. And you can't go power for power against Michael like that.
It's an interesting thing when you start bringing in, and I know why they do it. They're trying to attract different audiences to the sport and bring in new eyes for us. But even WWE, as put on as that is, they still follow that model. And then once in a while, they'll bring in the celebrity to do something outrageous, like David Arquette winning the WCW world title, right? Like,
why you gotta bring that up, man? Why you gotta bring that up?
Nail in the coffin of WCW, right?
Yeah.
But somebody that doesn't deserve to be there doesn't have the credibility to be there. I think that the probably the balance should go towards somebody that brings in a little bit of both worlds, like Ryan Bowen coming in. I mean, I don't think anybody can protest Ryan getting a match in WAL because he's a personality, but he also has arm wrestling ability. When you bring in somebody purely on their personality and social media following, I think you're making a mistake.
Well, Ryan was not a mockery. Juju Mufu was a mockery to us purists, to us actual arm wrestlers. To his YouTube following, the million YouTube followers, I mean, if they start arm wrestling and getting on board, I don't know. But, I mean, to us, it's definitely a mockery and an insult and a slap in the face to certain pullers that have legitimately qualified and worked up the ladder and not getting a shot. But what do you want?
Yeah, it would be nice if maybe they would, give it a special name if they're going to do this stuff in the future, right? Like a feature or something, just to kind of denote that, hey, maybe this is something slightly different,
Celebrity death match.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I think maybe it's 51% to the good and 50% or 49% to the bad. Just because he's so powerful. His channel is powerful, right? And not only does it reach it reaches the type of people who actually have a good chance of becoming arm wrestlers, because the people who watch Juji are strong people who want to be strong, people who want to lift, all this type of stuff. So if it trickles down, right, it's a lot of ifs, but I am I'm saying I'm 51% okay with it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I'm 100% with on board if it grows the way they want it to grow, because it's all about growth. But the optics and the
it's pretty painful.
Like Jody was saying, though, I mean, it takes it appears to take away an opportunity from a guy like Paul Passmore, who should be featured on like using Paul as an example. Man, I would have been way more excited to see him versus Aiello on there than Juji Mufu versus Aiello.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We are.
Yeah, we are. The general public, yeah, they know who Juji Mufu is.
If their template is to cater to the arm wrestling demographic, they will fail. Much like Game of Arms, if they tried to, we thought it was ridiculous. $250. We know no one travels across the United States for $250. Like, for us, some things were a mockery. But if they decide to cater to the small percentage of arm wrestling popularity, the arm wrestling demographic, they will ultimately fail. So although I didn't like the optics, maybe the recipe is right. I don't know. Time will tell.
Yeah. But then there's not a ton of sports celebrities out there. I mean, a guy like, if they brought in a guy like Brian Shaw and he had an exhibition with somebody, hell, I'd be all over that, because there's a guy that I think could, he might not be there right now, but he could be,
Yeah. That's why Devin and Bortolato was a good match. You had two personalities, and one guy was explosive and polarizing. So, I mean, who knows? Like, for us, some of these things are predictable. For the outside population, maybe these things are exactly what they need to walk through the door.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons that Devin has, 135,000 YouTube subscribers is because he had a match with the Mountain, and the Mountain had no chance to win that match. But in the general public's eyes, this guy's, he wasn't yet, but he eventually became world's strongest man, and he can't beat a guy that he outweighs by 200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there you have it. It's a different world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about next year at WAL real quick, or real long?
Oh, please. Can we please?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So I don't know. There's a ton of stuff to talk about, but so last year we saw King's moves, we saw double King's moves, we saw rules shenanigans, we saw WWE, but we also saw like Michael Todd not use a King's move in the finale, and we saw Devin not use a King's move against Wagner. Do you think we're going to see more King's move, or is it like we're going to move on to something that's going to catch people's attention a little better now?
Well, I want to touch quickly when you said Michael Todd didn't use King's move, and you're talking about the Jerry match. I noticed when I went back and I watched some of old footage of Michael, particularly at the UAL event, I think it was 8 where they gave away the car, and Michael pulled John a couple of times, and John beat him both times. One of those times he pulled John in King's move, and one of those times he pulled very much like he pulled against Jerry, which was kind of a sideways, different position. Those are the two moves he tends to use, and I think, I don't know if it's relevant to any future matches, but I think you're going to see the King's move more and more. But as far as Michael goes, he has two distinctly different moves he can go to and win matches. And they're both very similar in that it's a grinding kind of tire out your opponent position to sit in. But anyway, you guys go ahead.
Well, I think as far as the King's moves goes, I think you'll see a lot more people do it. But it's not a move you can just go and practice and go, okay, I'm going to train for the King's move. It's nothing like that. It's more like if you just train your pronator over and over again, and then as you slide your elbow forward, almost like a posting move, that's when you stop your opponent to hit. You can pretty much keep it there. And as you wear your opponent out, then you can, as long as you keep to where you can see the back of your hand, you're fine. When you get in trouble is when all of a sudden someone turns you in like this, now you're in trouble. As long as you can have this kind of movement right here, see the back of your hand. It's very hard for someone to try to pin you like that, you know. But to answer your question, I think there'll be more King's Move being used. I think now because people like Devin used it, there was that time where it was an ugly match, but Devin and Chafee used it, and it was pretty ugly. But the more you see it, the more you get results, the more people are tending to want to like it and open their arms to it now.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see more. I think it's trending only because it's being promoted by the best. Once Devin started promoting it, not condoning it, we've seen it, and now we've seen it at the world stage. We saw it at WAF to the dismay of Jeff Hale. So I think we're going to see more of it until a ref or a organization has the apples to start enforcing that rule to the T. Because if that rule is enforced to the T, we all know what rule we're talking about. 8 out of 10 Kings moves are stopped and fouled. It's just not either refs don't fully understand or they don't have the fucking balls to call it on top elite reputable guys. But the more we move into the future, the more win at all cost in any domain, in any part of life is becoming more prevalent. People want to be rich more than ever. They want to succeed more than ever. And integrity and ethics behind it start to fade in the background. So based on all that, unless it's enforced better, the rule, we should, in my mind, see more of it. I see it at practice. I never saw it at practice 3 years ago. I never, ever saw it. Never saw it. When Mac Telly and Tim Lewis did it, it was mocked and people purposely didn't do it to not look stupid. Once it was used by two mega elite household names, and they've never endorsed it, but Devin endorsed it, claiming it was the new age move. That became dangerous, and that's the trajectory this sport is going to take until it's enforced better.
Well, keep in mind, when Michael Ty was pulling for the PAL, we're talking 7x7 pads, using WAF rules. He was still legit then. So it's not just a wall thing. And Chris, I have to remind you, if you talk about rules and the word wall, that doesn't really go hand in hand these days.
No, and I'm fine with it because they have a following, and it's. I mean, whatever causes chatter weeks following an event is a good thing, like negative or not. Like negative publicity is better than no publicity. And Michael Todd's been doing it forever, and he's been being criticized forever. I'll always criticize it, and some people will always support it. It's inevitable. It's all good, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know.
What do you guys think the chances are that some kind of new thing comes up and somebody comes up with a really good way to get around it or block it from happening in the first place, and it goes that direction? Is there any chance of that?
To be effective at it, I think that there will come a time when guys train to counter that move. Yeah, I think there will be. And I think it's not going to be a huge secret on how to beat it. I mean, you got to kind of come around and press it down and control the hand a little bit on top. But it's, I think it's a matter of time before people start to get used to people doing that to them and train to get around it and just beat the move itself. So there's no move that can't be beat. Even Crazy George's version of the King's move, which largely was his arm being fused, he didn't always win, and he still has traditionally struggled in like a setting of WAF. So there's ways to beat all these moves. I don't necessarily think that there should be a rule against it or anything like that. I think we just need to learn to adapt and beat it. And it's ugly, and I think that a lot of people that have celebrated it that maybe are not necessarily the most popular guys on the scene need to keep winning to keep their spot.
Yeah. I think it's important to keep shaming it. That's my responsibility. I'll keep doing it. More people, there are ways to counter it, although I find it sad when we have to tailor our sport to catering something that's so optically disgusting and ultimately hurts the sport. And it's a very hard move to counter, especially because sometimes the move gets into its apex when the opponent is tired. So you can train to beat it. But once you're 30, 40 seconds into the match and the king move gets into its full apex, and your opponent gets under the table, and you can look at the top of his head, and you're like, well, time to counter it. You can't counter it. You're bleeding at an extreme pace where your opponent is not. He's sitting. It's extreme running. It's not the same playing field in terms of exhaustion, and I don't think most people understand the king's move and why I think it's disgraceful or unethical. But anyway, it's a new move. It's a different move. It offers different ways of thinking to get around it, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Well, we could see some big changes coming up this year too, pending what WAF does. I mean, obviously something happened in that Hale Mackay match where they made up a rule that doesn't exist in order to give the match to Jeff. The question is, will they make that an actual rule and put it in the actual rule book next time they update it?
Yeah.
Because if they come down hard on that, then that might change some stuff there, and then we're going to see just bigger differences between leagues. And this is the King's Move League, and this is the non-King's Move League.
Yeah. I refed a tournament about 3 months ago, and I called 3 or 4 matches in the amateur ranks. I stopped each one, and someone said, well, you're stopping King's moving. I said, no, I'm stopping shoulder below table on the neutral or defensive side of the table, not attacking side. I'm calling the rule as it's meant to be called, CAWF, WAF. I'm just enforcing it to a T. And so it just, it's not called. The problem can be solved with proper execution of the rules, following the rules the way they're meant to be. Devin's match with Dave, illegal. With Jeff, at WAF, the guy was on the defensive side, losing position, shoulder under the table. That's a foul or a loss, depending on how you want to call it. It's not being called.
But my point with all the video I did was that it's based on the rules, the way the rules are written, that you actually cannot be called for any kind of King's move in WAF. It's not possible. There's no mechanism in the rules that says it. It comes down to the 2 rules in the foul section, the 8.1.6 and 8.1.5. 8.1.6 says this will be deemed a dangerous position. And then 8.1.5 says a dangerous position will warrant a caution from the referee. What's a caution? No one knows.
Is that newly written? Because
that's the 2019, which Murcia sent to me himself after I was, because the way it went was I saw the match, and then I sent a message to Jeff Hale, and Jeff Hale said, "Oh well, they gave me the match because there's a rule that says you got to give the guy 3 warnings and then he gets a foul, and they didn't do that, so they gave me the match." So I'm like, oh, well, that's weird. I have the 2018 rules here. That rule isn't in there. So then I got the 2019 rule book. That still isn't in there.
Yeah, which I think is bullshit, because basically what you're saying is we don't like this, but we'll give you enough tolerance to fatigue your opponent and ultimately end his tournament while we caution you. It's like, come on, man. That's
I just want them to make it, just write the damn rule the way you want it to be called, and then just stick to that. That's all it needs to happen.
There's way too much gray area in that ruling, and I agree with you. And kudos to you to research it, because that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just poorly written. I assume they intended for it to be a warning. I was talking to Eric Racine, and he brought up the point that earlier in the rules, in the hearing and visual impaired rules, they say there will be no warnings given for dangerous position. They'll just stop the match. So it seems to me like they intended for it to be a warning, but then they never carried through with properly writing the rule for like the open class rules.
I got a question. Is it me, or just like it seems like anybody who participates in Worlds from their team representative, their country, don't they get a list of the rules? That way they kind of know that going into it?
The team captain should have a copy of those rules.
Right. So our team captain would be Simon Barachoa. And, I'm pretty sure all our athletes from Team USA got a list of the rules and say, okay, here's the list of the rules as far as WAP, and they shouldn't change as anything else, but what they can and cannot do. And then they have like a league meeting while you're there about the do's and don'ts and all that kind of stuff. I thought they covered all that.
Apparently nobody reads it.
No, at the world level, you would have a team meeting that is set up by your team captain for your team, and it would kind of be on the captain to take care of that and go over that with you. To get everyone together for a rules meeting at that tournament would just be too cumbersome. You wouldn't be able to do it. And at the Canadian Arm Wrestling Federation, I can tell you that, like, and I don't know, you might correct me on this, John, but there's dangerous position. There's no such thing as a warning for that. It's a foul, because why are you going to sit there and give somebody 3 verbal cautions if you believe they're truly in danger of breaking their arm or hurting themselves?
Logistically, it's ridiculous. It's like me and Ryan being in a car and his seatbelt is off, and I'm driving and we're about to go off a cliff, and I'm like, dude, I won't tighten your seatbelt, but you should. I'm advising you put it on. Like, just fucking put it on. Like, it's dangerous. You stop it. You don't fucking give the guy 3 warnings. You fucking, if you're able to stop it, you stop it, or to prevent the injury. So just on sheer, it's just not logical. Like, you would think a ref would exercise enough general common sense to stop it, but like you said, the writing is weak. The writing behind that ruling is weak.
Yeah, the referee in chief at WAF just makes this stuff up as he goes along anyway.
Yeah, and to go back to your point, Ryan, about the CAWF, I don't have the rules directly in front of me, but they are worded different in the CAWF rules. There is a mechanism to call the foul. I can't remember exactly how it's worded, but it's different than WAF.
Yeah.
Good question, Jody. It's also like you have access to the anti-doping list of what's not permitted, but who actually checks it? Because if you do check it, man, you can't have 3 cups of coffee or NyQuil. I mean, it's a pretty deep list of things that are not allowed.
Yeah. I think marijuana is on the list too. You know, and I not to sit there and rain on people's parade, but I know if you did the marijuana thing, which I don't see why you would do that. You would, if someone's going to do that, and I'm not, against it, but wouldn't you want to do that kind of stuff after you are done, not like before or after day 1? It's like, if you're still pulling, do that, because it does show up, and that's on the rules. If you get popped for any kind of edibles or marijuana and you place, let's just say you win Worlds, you can't get your medal taken away from you,
Yeah, it's interesting, because if the team captain is doing his job properly, which I'm not convinced that there are many that are, they have to really do a lot of homework, not only on the rules, but the anti-doping list, times, places, things that they can and cannot do, educating the arm wrestlers on the process of protests, things like that. Like, it's a big job, and man, it's a tough one. In Canada, the team captain is actually an elected position.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to cover, you almost need a committee.
You should have almost a subcommittee. Like, one guy's in charge of the anti-doping stuff, one guy's in charge of the rules on the table, other guys watching matches to see if they should stay up there for protests. Yeah, things like that. It's a big job.
Indeed.
What else we got as far as WL goes? Because I got a lot I'd like to cover, like the strap, the malfunction. They need a bigger. And what do you guys think? I understand it wasn't part of the wall rules, but and I was talking to Leonard about this, and even he told me, he was like, hey, if someone's fingers happen to slide through the strap, but the strap is still tied to the other person's hand to hand, they don't stop the match. And my argument is that in a matchup of that, with that ramification, because at that point, Michael Todd, 2 wins, Jerry Cataret, 2 wins. This is for the hammer, the money, the bragging rights, and everything. And you get a malfunction in the strap. I'm sorry, I know it's not a part of the rules. And what confused me is that Bart Wood was like saying, I don't want to end the match that way. Well, what do you mean? Because in the wall rules book, you keep the match going, which you did, but now you're risking injury. Now you're risking, okay, someone's fingers could have been snapped, or dislocated because, they're out of the strap, and all of a sudden you got 2 powerful guys torquing on one another. I would have just said, all right, let's stop the match, restrap it up, and go from there. Your thoughts?
Well, I'll go. I think I talked about this once before. The match, if it was stopped mid-match before one guy clearly fouled himself out, and they would have reset it. Maybe you have something there. But as the way it went down and the way it was called in the end was as per the rules that were set in advance. The problem I had with it is, where did they come up with the strap that they're using? Because they seem to have invented a new strap for WAL, which was smaller, thinner, the D-ring that they haven't used in so many years. The strap itself is kind of crappy and kind of lends itself to problems. They have adapted the rules now to cover this if it ever happens in the future, which is great. But, I mean, I don't see it. Like, one of the guys, the way it was called in the end is the right call, as it was on that day, in my opinion. And if they reset it, I believe you might have seen a different hammer holder, but he would have kind of got screwed.
Well, that whole thing was just there was so much going on, whether it be the strap malfunction, whether it be, Jerry not putting his elbow down when Bart said do it, and he just said, no, I'm going to lift it up. And then, of course, Michael threw a fit, which he was legit right, because with the Devin Chafee thing, same thing happened. And his big argument is that you call one thing on one match, but you don't call on the other, or vice versa. So, yeah, there was a lot of inconsistencies on the last match of the season. It was just a lot going on that they always have to go back in the offseason and go, okay, guys, what can we do to fix this?
Yeah.
I had a roller coaster of emotions during that match. I thought it was a great match. I thought I was disappointed in the end, but god damn was that funny. I was laughing like I forget the guy's name. So you have Neil pick up at the table, and then like Neil leaves, and the guy's like, well, Neil's left. And then you got Neil up there, and then you got Devin trying to like hand his bigger strap off, and like Michael's losing his mind. Like, it was fun. Like, it was disappointing and it was fun. I don't know. I don't know what to feel about it, but I honestly, it reminded me of like 1997, the end of a pro wrestling show, where it's just chaos. Nobody knows what's going on, and
somebody's
it's like,
dad's jumping in the ring.
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that in each corner you had, in Jerry's corner, there was like Devin's over there saying a few things, and in Michael's corner you had Jody Laird over there, comforting Mrs. Monster. Did y'all catch that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I caught it, and all the people watching with me caught it as well. And I will save the comments that came out of their mouths for. Yeah.
But when I go to a tournament and I pay $20, $30, I'm entitled to many things. I'm entitled to a fair setup, and I will get it, or else I won't let the match start. I always tell the guys I train that you're entitled to it. Do not let poor reffing change the outcome. At least when it comes to starting the match. And you're entitled to a strap if you slip. Jerry was entitled to a strap, and he didn't get it. That match should have been stopped, and I don't care what the intricacies of the rules say. Sheer logic tells you that match should have been stopped so Jerry can get a fair shot. And it wasn't, and Jerry paid the price, and Michael won. And the incessant whining did not love. But that's Wall, right? Wall is all about drama and unpredictability and all that shit, and conspiracies and controversies. It was a perfect ending to their perfect season. Like, what do you want? Can you imagine a show where you have 5 matches or whatever, and at the end of it, everyone says, that makes sense, and the next day everyone's like, well, that was fun, can't wait till the next one? Never going to happen. There was always going to be something with people, pullers, wives, reffing, straps, rules, tables, everything.
Gotta have a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it's fucking. I mean,
you can't write it, man. Like, that was.
And now we get a third one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We get to see it again, so that'll be all right.
Yeah. I just felt bad for Jerry. As well. Guy trains for 6 months, whatever. Doesn't get a full swing at the ball. What do you want?
But who is out there that has a stronger case for the match right now, again, against Michael than Jerry? I can't think of anybody that has that.
Dude, I'm
Not
fine
right-handed.
with not right-handed.
Not
No.
right-handed. I mean, you know, if we're talking left-handed, then that brings a whole new aspect. And I'm hoping with the Wagner Devin Larratt match, that was a left-handed match. Hopefully, they open some doors for left-handed competition, because now you bring in a whole slew of different arm wrestlers. You know, if you invite a left-handed match on a regular basis, because then the two people in this video thing, SB may get the call, Gabi. You put in Cody Merritt, Mike Gould. Then it brings in a whole slew of people.
Yeah, Wall has two major challenges in front of them. I think one is presenting a valid competition to Gabi, because I don't think she's a man. She might just be so high above her field that you can't get her a match. And the second thing, same deal, but on the other spectrum of the gender, is RVJ. You have two top athletes representing their hammers that really have no identifiable nemesis right now. So that's two challenges for them, among the other things of rules and all that stuff. But those are two things they need to address. Many people claim they might have a shot at RVJ, and the Justin Bishop match was not indicative of how dominant RVJ is. It wasn't 3-1. I mean, that's 3-1, but it's not 3-1. It was absolutely dominant. So it's two challenges they need to address, or Neil or whoever is hired to address those problems.
I got a question for you guys on Gabi and the Gabi and Sarah match. Now that we know how extensive the injury was that Sarah sustained, apparently in the first match, do we need to see that again now that we know she was injured so badly?
Yes, but not right away. She needs to have some tune-up matches and show us something a little bit different. So when a performance like that is so dominant against the challenger from the I guess neither one of them is the champion per se, but when there's such a one-sided performance, regardless if there's an injury or not, whether it's fighting or any other kind of one-on-one sport, I think the person that lost needs to build a little bit of momentum before they instantly get that shot again. And it would make for a much more intriguing match, because at this point, who would expect anything but what happened already to happen again?
Right.
Well, here's two questions. One, as far as Sarah Rotunda, who do you put as her to build up? Who would her build-up match be? And number two, and I'm just, going off of just my mind here, if a real healthy Heidi Cordner challenges Gabi, can she make it interesting?
Can Heidi make it interesting?
Yeah, against Gabi.
It's an intriguing match. I mean, you have such a size disparity that it could be one that you could definitely build.
Potentially yes, but ultimately no. I don't think so. She'd have to start training again. She'd have to. I don't think she lives in the right climate psychologically to become a valid opponent for Gabi. Gabi is a champion, but she also lives a champion's life and has a champion's mentality. And in terms of Sarah, I believe you have no choice but to bring Sarah back, because other than bringing Irina out of retirement or the Lithuanian heavyweight, Gabi has no. Those are the only three really that come to my mind that I know that can give her a match. And when the reality that Sarah was injured came to fruition, that was really a gift for Wall, because that offers a different argument why you could have the rematch. Because if she wasn't injured, you can't argue a rematch. You could, but it would be laughable. So, but like Ryan said, she can't just come back and have a rematch. Just like when a boxer knocks out a guy and he wants a rematch, yeah, but you're not getting it next month. You need to rebuild your credibility and your reputation and earn your way back to me. It's not just going to be given. So she will have to. And who does she fight? It really doesn't really matter. You can really put her against anyone. She just needs to get one or two card wins under her belt and get her confidence up, and then you can present the argument that she can be back in the arena versus Gabi. So it's not unheard of, but ultimately we will see that match again for no other reason that we don't have much other choice other than bringing in a monster from Eastern Europe.
Well, I'll tell you what, just looking back at that match, even though it was 3-0, and I wasn't surprised that Gabi won, I was surprised the way she won, because you guys got to remember, before her first official win, she pinned her twice, and there was elbow fouls on Gabby's part. And even on the elbow fouls, it seemed like Sarah had no chance whatsoever.
Yeah.
It presents an argument. You can make that argument why a rematch could be you can defend it. It just like Ryan said, the timeline's important. It has to be the right way back.
Right. I tell you what, I'm looking forward, and I hope WAL does this. I mean, now we're, like I said, social media, and a question to you three guys, because it's what's best for business, right? So if I'm on the board, I'm saying, okay, enough talk. Let's make this match happen. Let's get Ryan Bowen. Let's get Justin Bishop. Make that happen. Because now, the last time they met, it was in Australia. Justin went down there, cleaned house. Now this time around, I think it changes the atmosphere. You know, and maybe not the outcome, but the atmosphere is going to be a little bit different now, because now Ryan's a well-polished and well-rounded this time around than he was a few years back.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I'd like to see personally. I'd like to see RVJ and Paul Lynn. I think Paul Lynn has the physicality and the raw ability to give RVJ a match, and he has stronger intangible qualities. He's more consistent with his training, with his diet, lifestyle, all that stuff, and I think he's a legitimate matchup to RVJ. Would he be a favorite? No, but he's the next in line, and he has a lot more of a foundation than Justin had. Ryan and Justin Bishop's another good match, because I think if you're handicapping that match and you know your shit, it's hard to handicap right now. It's tough to call, which makes it in its own right a good match when we can't easily handicap it. And I want to see Ryan Espy and Devin Larat left-handed. That's what I want to see. Will it happen? I don't know, but I would love to see that match. I think it needs to happen from an optics strategy-wise. There's a lot of reasons why that match would be mega. I just hope they eventually, or even just get Ryan in there, because you're limited on how many elite heavyweights there are rambling around there, and if they open up left, then even more so. So it should happen. So those are the three matchups I'd really like to see in the next year coming, and I'm sure we'll see Jerry and Todd again, and we'll see the same names in the same mix. But I'd like to see those three happen. And also, I don't know, but we have a Canadian, Christina Flicka, who, from what I've heard and from what I've seen, she presents a better opponent for Sarah than Heidi, only because she's present. She's been active, and she's just, the proof is there that she's an elite female arm wrestler at that caliber. So that's another one I'd like to see. Will it happen? She might not have the cachet or the name yet, but I'd love to see it, and I think she's ready.
Well, here's the thing: she's pulling against Gabby at that Red Deer.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
She's also very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flicka is incredible. Like, she should have been in WAL a while ago, but that's a tall order, and I'm pretty excited to see that match next August.
Is there been any word about Passmore still just going to be in there? He's going to be all healed up and everything for that?
I listened to Ray Cote's show, and Paul says he's going to be focused on getting ready for that event. So he thinks it'll be the end of 2020 before he pulls right-handed, but he thinks left-handed he should be able to be ready by the August 8th event.
Yeah,
it's sad. A good friend of mine went down to that tournament down there where Paul injured himself, and he had a super match that day against Chance Shaw. And from what I heard, the winner of that punched their ticket in the WAL. So it's kind of unfortunate to happen like that, where, Paul should have been in there regardless anyway. But, now he has to, he has a major setback right-handed, and he's going to have to train and heal up, But like Ryan said, left-handed, he should be a go, right?
Yeah, it should be.
Yes. The funny thing about a break arm is when I see a break arm, I have one of two reactions. Most commonly is I feel bad for that person. I have a feeling that they might fade away, and I hope they don't. But I feel bad. I do empathize. I have that ability. The other one is there's a little bit of, I'm definitely not worried for them. There's empathy, but in a way, I think it's a good thing. And when Paul broke his arm, the way he reacted told me that you didn't have to worry about him emotionally. There wasn't going to be much of a psychological setback. And number two, kind of like when Dave Chafee broke his arm twice and came back and just dominated. I see that with Paul. I see this being a stepping stone to a full recovery, and just we all know that what happens when a bone fuses back naturally. What happens? This is a good thing for Paul, although it's an odd thing to say. I think this propels him to a different level, and I think in about a year and a half we're going to be talking how that was a great thing and how it propelled him, and he's going to end up on wall. It's inevitable. He's a tough dude. You can tell he's mentally resilient, and you can tell he has great physical tools for arm wrestling and potential. And I think we're talking about a future level 5. I think this guy's dynamite. So I didn't shed a tear. I'm sad for his wife. I'm sad for the optics. But ultimately we'll talk about this in the future as more or less a blessing in disguise.
He certainly got a great attitude over the whole thing. Like even encouraging people to watch his video of his arm breaking and learn from it. That's kind of unheard of. Yeah,
that was his credibility went up with an injury in my eyes, in terms of his personality and his character as a man. That's impressive. I always say that if I ever broke my arm, done. I start my career into table tennis, and everything else is put into the basement. Like, I just think I shut everything down. Maybe that's not the case, but whenever someone comes back stronger from an arm break, I am thoroughly fucking impressed. Thoroughly. Based on their character, their strength of character and resiliency. Yeah, big time.
Hey, Jody, I wanted to just go back. You were asking about, I wanted to comment, and when you said that Ryan Bowen, Justin Bishop, I think that it's a promoter's dream to have that match set up.
Yeah.
If that was on card number 1, WAL can make that match and just let those two guys do their own thing. And we'll all tune in and watch.
The rest of the matches can be fluffer matches.
Yeah.
That card would be big based on that alone. They don't love each other. They're two polarizing, totally two different type of personalities, two different parts of the world. Stylistically, they're not that different, but there's a history where Justin smoked him. Ryan's been coming back stronger ever since. I mean, this has to happen. If you hate him or don't hate him, this match has to happen, and it will happen. Absolutely.
I think, can you imagine the build up to that? I mean, and let's just say Ryan Bowen takes top 3 of Slotty. Now, can you really put this in perspective and go, okay, Bishop, okay, Bowen, last time you guys met, it was Bowen who got crushed in his own country by Bishop. Now, does he come back on U.S. soil and return the favor? I mean, just the build-up alone, it's like you have to do that. If you don't do that, then what is wrong with you guys?
Yeah, if Ryan finishes third at Zloty, barring some type of crazy supernatural interference, he will be a massive favorite, and I'll claim that he'll crush Justin, only because Justin's style, when we saw him pull in Moldova, he got smashed. Hand-heavy guys that are lighter in the arm do not fare well in that European style. And so if Ryan proves to totally alter and change his game to the European explosive style to finish top 3 in a 15-plus man class with all studs, Justin's done. I'll state it right now. And I don't believe Ryan will finish top 3, but if he does, I will come on the record and say Justin's in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. But I don't believe Ryan will finish top 3. Just theoretically, I'm telling you what I believe what will happen.
If he does, I just think Justin will just slip out of that and go, and he'll make all matches go to the strap. That's my opinion.
Won't matter.
Because, you don't think so?
No, because if Ryan finishes top 3, that means he's exponentially increased his side pressure game, and a lot of matches will end up in the strap because of the explosivity of the setup and people firing hard up top. So we know 3 things. One, his side pressure has increased immensely. Number 2, his strap game, which is already a strength of his, is as strong or if not stronger. And number 3, his sheer overall horsepower and aggression has increased. 3 things that are going to put him over the top versus Justin. I'm not saying it's impossible because Justin can make gains. It's not unheard of that Justin doesn't have the ability to make gains too. But when we saw Justin in that environment, he got sliced and diced. And I believe Ryan more or less will get sliced and diced. But if Ryan does not get sliced and diced, and he has 8 months or 6 months after that fact to train for Justin, I give him, I say he's an overwhelming favorite. If all these things line up the way I say they will. Of course, I don't believe they will. But hypothetically speaking, it doesn't bode well for Justin if Ryan slices his way through the Europeans. That's because that's a venomous style for Justin.
Yeah.
And you can't hand load and finger climb your way through that European bracket the way Ryan used to pull. You can't. They don't allow it. There's too much side pressure, speed, and bicep in the game. That everything in Europe is cup and side pressure done with exceptional speed and execution, which is a nightmare for finger climbers and gradually loading hand runners. So if Ryan was able to change his game, his whole physical paradigm, kudos to him, and Justin's in a lot of trouble. But for the record, I don't believe he will. I figure he'll get a couple wins on the bottom guys and get tossed out around 7, 8, 9 position.
It'll be a sight to see one way or the other. So
kudos to him. I give a guy more credit for going into a tournament, getting his ass kicked, than sitting on his couch and talking about it and never doing it. Right. So just the fact that he's going to the hardest event on earth adds street credit for him in my mind.
You know, it just dawned on me, you guys. Speaking of European, the side pressure, the bicep, and the quick hit. Daniel Mosier, Louisiana, he's headed to Zlatan. How do you think he'd fare out?
He's got a good. His strength is on side pressure on the attacking side, not so much. He's another good example of how good an arm wrestler is when he gets everything he wants. Daniel gets everything he wants on the attacking side. He might finish top 3. He has that, but again, these guys are as strong and as fast. They might not have Dan's hand, but Dan loves to load.
Yeah,
you don't load in Europe. They don't. No one could. You can't load Rustam Babayev if he doesn't want you to load him. He'll rest grip and he'll slam sideways. So it's the easiest thing to do in arm wrestling is to negate a big strong hand. Not a strong wrist or a great strap game, but the easiest thing to negate and to circumvent is someone with a big dominant hand. It's easy. You can't. It's hard to run away from a strong arm, strong side pressure, a strong strap game. But you can run away, or you can find your way around just a sheer strong thick hand. I've done it my whole life. I think Ryan probably can do a little bit better. Or, Dan can do better than Ryan because he has a little. As of right now, what I see, he has a little bit more horsepower. But again, middle of the pack, finished 6, 7, 8. I don't think he can finish top 3. We saw it with Herman, but Herman has that European style. Herman trains like Europeans. That's why we saw him finish top 3. But like I said, just super interesting to see and follow. And the more North Americans that head over to that tournament, the more interesting it gets. So it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
When are we going to see you guys go there?
You might see me go there next year.
Yeah.
2020. It's been something that's been on the list for a very long time. So you might see it. I'm going to go try to get one more world title at some point and then probably head over to Zlatan in the same year.
Yeah. I've said over the last couple of years I was planning to go over with Herman, pull 70 kg left. Just never in the cards. Money, travel, time off, all that stuff comes into play. But it would be an honor to pull an event like that, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, for me, it's more of a question of can I get my fat ass to be slightly less fat? That would be my number one problem in making that decision. Because I should probably be at least 220, probably 198. I'm on my way, but then I also have to keep any power that I had, which was a huge problem for me last year because I was at 305 in January 1st this year, right? And so now I'm at 255. I had a big cut for nationals, lost strength like crazy. Feeling good now, but if I got to cut another 50 pounds after that, who knows what's going to happen. So
is your next big test, John, Canadian Nationals 2020?
Yeah.
Now you're on the mic there, but are you also pulling? And if you are, what are you aiming for? Are you aiming for 198s?
Minimally 220. I want to do it slow. I want to do it cautiously, but preferably 198. I think that would be great if I can get down there. The problem for me at nationals is always the fact that I work at nationals and pull at nationals, right? It's like, okay, go scream your head off for 8 hours and then go take a nap and then go scream your head off for 6 hours and then go pull.
That's terrible.
Which is very difficult. But, but to be honest with you, I love commentating more than I even love pulling at nationals. So it is what it is. And I'll just, I'll grip it and rip it, and we'll see where we go. But the weight is the number one thing. I'm training harder than I ever have in my life right now. But God damn, I'll train twice a day and just kill myself, but I can't resist a bowl of ice cream to save my goddamn life. Jesus. Weak in the mind, I tell you.
we all fight that.
Right?
How about you, Jody? What's next for you? What's your next big test?
It's the Arnold in March, but it'll be a little bit different this year because they split that heavy class up into two now. So now you have a 242 and a 243 and over class. So I won't be seeing the guys that I saw this year.
The monsters,
yeah.
Unless
you see Chris Chandler pop in at 242, then I might have some issues.
Yeah. I always thought the 199 plus class was fun because you had like a 20-man class. But if you're 215, wow, you better be super elite to deal with those guys.
I was fortunate not to run into the same bracket with Barbosa and Don Underwood, although I did take a loss to Robbie Burnett, who actually came in second, but and Derek Smith, and I had a couple wins, but other than that, it was just like, you know what, it's just I want to cut to 198, but I don't see myself doing it. I walk around at 220, so it's kind of like that's just where I sit. And to make that drastic a cut, like John would say, I would have to lose some kind of strength to go along with that. And if I were to cut to 198 and be in that same class with Quinlan Mendez and Paul Lynn and Daniel Mosier, then what strength am I going to have for those guys? So I just figure, I can eat a Subway sandwich and feel good about it and keep my strength and go from there. But, being that there's a 242 class this year, it's going to be interesting. So I'm real excited this year.
Yeah. Responding to you, John, I think I've been in as many nationals, and sometimes the 198 is tougher than the 220. So ironically, if you jump into a 220 feeling nice and strong, your chances are probably better than really try to diet extreme too much and get under 198 or have to lose water. And let's face it, miking is like reffing. I mean, it's mentally draining. And if you have to worry about a water cut, man, you're done. Like, even if you can get through a little bit of that, you're going to need 2 weeks of downtime just to get back to neutral. So, 220, be great on the mic, have a good time. Arnold's is always a blast. I know Ryan's thinking of making it. I might try to make it. Always fun. And talking about gradually losing weight, Ryan, how are you doing?
I'm roughly 10 down from where I was. Yeah. I'm in the low 360s compared to I think I was 388 when I pulled Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, John, you're left dominant, aren't you?
Yeah.
Have you and Ryan ever pulled?
Yep. Ryan, I only like 2 times, I think, at nationals, possibly in PEI 2015.
Yeah.
Which I did phenomenally well for myself. I got 3rd, but I got just flashed and destroyed by both Ryan and Earl Wilson. I don't have any illusions of grandeur when it comes to the super heavyweights. I was a super heavyweight because I was the weight of a super heavyweight, not because I was the talent of one. Now, that being said, I did get a national title at the super heavyweight level, which I'm very happy about, but also Ryan wasn't there that year. Earl wasn't there that year. So it was kind of a perfect storm for me in that situation.
Yeah. You seem like an awfully smart guy, so I have to ask you, what in the world motivated you to move from the United States to Nova Scotia?
Ah, yes. So I trained. So I've been arm wrestling for like 9 years. I started with like Josh Handland and all those guys in Minneapolis. And so I did that for like 3 years, and we went all over the place. We went to the Arnolds. I just did a ton of arm wrestling. And then I met my wife, and my wife is from London, Ontario. And she's a psychologist. So she was doing her school in Minnesota, and that's when we met. And we've been together for about a year. And she said, well, I'm getting a job in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Either we can wrap this up or you can come with me. And so I quit my job, and I sold my car, and I sold my house. And here we are 6 years later.
And how do you like it? You seem if I didn't know you were an American, I would think you were Canadian. You act like a Canadian, which is flattering.
Well,
I don't know what the hell they're talking about, Jody.
It's above my head, so
a little bit of reference. Nova Scotia is like our Alaska, or your Alaska rather. It's a cold, dreary part of our country. But then again, so is Minnesota. So it's not like he was going from Florida to Halifax.
Yeah, it's actually more moderate here in Halifax for sure. It's wetter, which is a little annoying, but that's all right. But as far as arm wrestling here goes, awesome. Like I've been to, in the last 10 days, I've done maybe 15 days. I've done 6 table time practices, which is, if you're new and you're watching this, please do not do that. It's a horrible idea. But all with different people, different clubs. There's tons of clubs all over the place here. People pull differently wherever you go. So it's definitely benefited me. The only negative is that it's hard as hell to get out of here. It just costs so much money to fly anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really annoying. So I haven't been out as much other than nationals. I think the last non-national tournament that I went to was 2017 Arnold's, which I got 5th place at. Thank you very much. By only winning 1 match, legitimately. Don't ask me how that happened, but I lost to Michael Todd and Chris Chandler and somehow ended up 5th place. I have no idea. But yeah, it's great out here. We're going to stay out here for the foreseeable future, and there's lots of arms to pull, so it's all good.
Nice. Yeah. Jody, Ryan and I were talking weeks ago about doing a segment of arm wrestlers of where are they now? Kind of like arm wrestlers that have dropped off the world type thing. And my question to you is, where the fuck is John Shaw? What happened to him?
I actually pulled him in a super match earlier this year.
Did you really? I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was back in May. I know he took some time off. I know he had a brother that passed away, so I know he kind of took time off and he was dealing with that. But he made his comeback earlier. He went to the LA Expo in January this year, and then him and I had a super match, and I ended up beating him 3-0. And now hopefully he gets to come back because he was a namesake. Because for me, every arm wrestler has that one win that's your favorite. And for me, it was either Herman McCoy, and then you got John Shaw, because when I was started in 2011, in the supers, he was the guy. I'm like, okay, he would come to Oregon State Championships or the U.S. Open or any tournament in California, Nevada. He was there, and he was always top 3.
Well, I remember he had a super match with Ian Craig, the Grizzler, at Arm Wars for Neil Pickup. I believe, if I recall, around 2009 to 2011, something like that. He was a big name, and I felt he dropped off for a while, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, it took some time off. I think he's starting to slowly get back into it, though. So I'm sure at some point, once he's at full strength, he'll probably call me again and go, "Hey, can I get that rematch?" And I'll have to deal with that later on. So.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And before you go, you guys want to do this again sometime, and we can do it on your platform if you like, to segment number 2 and segment number 3, of course. And B, let's plug those platforms.
Yeah, I'm down.
Go ahead, Jody.
Yeah, I could do something like that. I'm not as computer savvy, so I got to find a way to get for me, when I do my show, it's either, I go live on Facebook and they see me, but I got everybody on speakerphone with my microphone set right here, and then we just kind of go from there. That's how I normally do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, one, I would come on and talk to you guys every single day for 2 hours. I would have no problem doing that whatsoever. The stuff that I'm doing, I'm like a scripted type of guy, right? Like I like to write stuff. I like to make little skits and whatnot. So I would love to have you guys involved in some of that, some way, shape or form. And just do, I don't know, something ridiculous, something funny. But I'll be thinking about the places for all of you guys to pop up in some future Uncle John video.
Sounds great, you guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time this afternoon. I think it's going to be an awesome show, and yeah, let's do it again.
Sounds good.
Take it easy, fellas.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Maximum effort.
Absolutely.
See you when I see you.
Yes, sir.